make a slight variation. Nah, not worth it. Not worth it. Okay. Right, so now what we want to do is we want to add a material. And oops, that's not what I wanted to do at all. I want to add a canvas item material and switch that over to add. Cool. So now those particles are only really going to affect, they're going to look like fire. They're going to add to the value of the screen and they're not going to darken it. Right? And I think we can probably bring the number of those particles down by half as well. Cool. All right. So we're going to actually be spinning this sprite around. In fact, we can probably just do that. Oh yeah, so we need a collision shape for our fire. So I'm just going to plonk in a collision shape 2D, and that requires us to provide a shape. And I think that's... How generous do we want to be? Yeah, this is a weapon you can get. So we've got 3 weapons. This is the 4th weapon we're implementing. The first weapon is like a missile that bounces off walls, but it explodes when it hits a player. The second weapon is an ice, like an icicle, and it's kind of like a grenade, and when it explodes it turns into an ice storm, and if you touch it you get frozen. And the third weapon is a ninja star, where the longer you hold the button, the more ninja stars you throw, and you just throw them all around you in a circle. And this I'm calling Fire Shield, and it's going to emit these little fireballs, and they're going to spin around you for a certain amount of time, depending on how long you held the button down for. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is we need to grab a reference from the Fire Shield. We want a const fireball, and that is going to be equal to the resource living at weapons fire shield fireball.textScene. So Tango Fish, have you used Godot before? Do you do game development yourself? Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to say fire, let's just say for I in range, and we'll say strength divided by 10, and we'll from 1.0 to 10, then we will create fireball I. Right? Cool. And I'm just going to create a helper here, and I'm going to call it, obviously, create fireball, and we're going to say I. And maybe we won't use the I just now, but what we'll do is we'll say fireball.instance var instance. In fact, we don't even need to do that. We'll just do init, passing our self and the strength. Cool. And now we let the fireball determine how it behaves when it's initialized. So let's call this fireball.gd. And we will call this a public API method called init. And that's going to receive the creator and the strength. And we can say var strength equals 100.0 by default. And actually that's going to be a new strength. And we'll just say the strength is equal to new strength. And we'll say the creator, we'll say our transform is equal to the creator.transform. Perhaps, I don't know. Actually, I think maybe we can. Yeah, I've got an idea. Okay, we don't need to do that. We can actually just say creator.addChild self. And then what we'll do is we will actually move, so the fireball is like that. We actually want to create a new position 2D and call this pivot and make that the scene root. Okay. And this will say is the collision. Call this the fireball. So I'll explain what I'm doing in a bit. But essentially, that fireball pivot is going to be what the fireball rotates around. And we'll move the collision up depending on the strength, I think. Oh, one more thing. Create fireball I, okay. So what I want to happen, right? So this is not going to work. This is going to be a position 2D, I believe. That was the type. Yep, position 2D. Makes sense. Okay. And we'll put the Y value of this collision up. So basically, that will determine the distance that the fireball is rotating from the player. So we'll create a const, which is minimum distance, and I think that will probably be equal to about 50. And const maximum distance, and I guess I'll just put that to about 200. And what we'll do is distance is going to be equal to the strength, well, is going to be equal to the maximum distance minus the minimum distance times the strength over the maximum strength, right? Plus the minimum distance, right? And we just return that. Cool. And all we're going to say is our position.y is equal to the distance and cool. Then, oh yeah, we always want to return self from the init. Return self, and in this one as well. And that allows us to chain things from the init call, which is just a useful thing I find in Godot. It does violate the command query separation principle, but I don't really mind too much. Okay, now the angle for the fireballs. So this here should be number of fireballs, right? So that's going to be up to 10 fireballs. So if you fire, maybe that's a bit too many. Maybe 5 fireballs makes the most sense. Okay. And then we'll say func angle for fireball, right? And we get an I for an index. And we will say that it's 360 divided by 360.0. Should we say, actually, I think it's in pi. Full circle divided by the number of fireballs times I. And we just return that value. And then full circle I think is pi times 4, right? Wow, I can't believe I've forgotten that. 360 degrees in pi. It's 2 pi. Yeah, blur. 2 pi. Okay. So then all we do here is we say dot rotation equals